So I really do hope, well, at least most of you understood it was a joke. The thumbnail, the title. This video is, of course, for everyone, bullish, bearish, investor, trader, all alike. It's mostly for people who want to speak the same language as the market speaks and understand what the technical analysis and price action is all about. So I'm here to break it all down real quick. Let's get into it. For those who don't have the time, right? So as you can see, we have various support and resistance levels. You can see some of them are slightly thinner than others. Those should represent the sort of intraday support and resistance levels. Those who are slightly weaker than the major ones, as you can see, those who are slightly thicker and with larger numbers. But you can see basically those are the near-term / medium-term destinations that we're going to see in, in the following sessions, of course, leading into next week. Now, looking at this pattern that we have right here, it obviously looks like an inverted head and shoulders that is forming, and it's not going to be all that surprising if the price action will play out all the way back to that 6,470.53. 6,467.17. In fact, maybe even over penetrate. Yes, that is quite a normal behavior. Via doing this over penetration, in fact, we'll end up closing, filling fully that gap that we've just generated. Although something important I gotta highlight, and I've been saying this and speaking with my community about this, in fact, talking about this in the YouTube videos for quite some time, is that gaps are a secondary, they're just a side effect. Bottom line, they're a secondary phenomena to the actual causality that leads to why gaps are created where they are created, and so they do not have priority with regards to getting filled. In fact, most of those gaps that we are now generating moving downwards can be filled as we eventually gonna find the bottom, which is very far off again, and we're not gonna talk about that right now. This is not the main focus, but yet it's very far off, at least based upon my analysis and my assessments. And so on the way back up, on the corrective wave, we will see these gaps get filled. So there's plenty of time that these gaps can stay open. In fact, if you look towards around 2020, 21, 2022, some of the gaps remained open for an entire year or even almost 2 entire years before they got filled. So there is no urgency nor necessity to close these gaps, and it can still play out. So we will continue the price action downwards further on, even if we will see an attempt and a retest of some of these levels. Doesn't mean this gap will necessarily gonna get filled this time around. Like I said, this is not a necessity, nor is it urgent. The 5 minutes in fact is implying that we're gonna continue moving downwards. Although, as you can see, that convergence divergence is occurring. The reason we're thinking downwards, because we're nowhere near the actual highs of that potential trend. We're actually pretty low, and we're already seeing convergence divergence and overbought, basically showing that we kind of spent most of our momentum, even if we'll have a little bit more. So sooner or later, or rather sooner than later, we will see the price action or these two forces overlap, cross over, turn around, and become a lot more bearish. 30 minutes, although is objectively bullish. As you can see right now, our green line is dominant, is on top. It is very weak given the very weak divergence you can see, and again, given how it is only 30 minutes, and on top of it all, we are in oversold territory. It does appear to be that we're bearish dominant at the time being, but to be certain, let's go to the larger time frame again. In this case, we are still bearish dominant in oversold territory. We are moving towards confluence sometime soon, so that means again a little bit more sideways. That means again, if we look at the broader spectrum of where we are in the price action, it's not going to be all that surprising if we're going to retest some of these levels. If you look objectively, you realize there's a wider channel going on right now, kind of diagonally going downwards like so, and we are right now entangled, in fact, with the support of that channel. So a retest of that channel given Friday's volume, although the market does seem to be quite healthy today, on the grand scheme of things, well, healthy relatively speaking to a Friday in wartime. All that confusion that's going on with Trump delaying his sanctions, 10 more days and so on and so on, his ultimatum, if you will, not sanctions, ultimatum, really, towards the IRGC. All this is just, him dragging time. It's him setting up a smoke screen and all sorts of wonderful things. In fact, I wouldn't try to figure out what Trump is about to do, although some of my members made fun. Noy, shout out to you, beautiful legend, that I have a spy in the White House. Of course, I do not have a spy in the White House. I merely analyze the price action. And no, I don't even pay attention that much to what Trump is saying, because I know it could be misdirection on purpose. And so, you know, paying attention to that basically could lead to you being misled by the very same way the people Trump is trying to mislead. So if we're looking at this, we are seeing some pickup. This is the 1 hourly time frame. We are seeing some pickup on the momentum. We're a little bit picking up our head a little bit right there, but we are still in oversold territory. That means on the grand scheme of things, we are bearish, or far more bearish than bullish. And as we said, it makes sense that we're gonna retest and sort of move through these levels, and at least that 6,404.30. In fact, some of you are unaware, there is another very important force that is currently affecting the market. There is a long duration diagonal channel that was pretty strong many moons ago, if you will. You can see that channel playing its own role, if you will, right back here in 2025 multiple times. It was retested on the support, on the resistance side, and then following that, after a while, it was tested on the resistance side. As you can see, the price action landed on top of it. On the grand scheme of things, some of you may think this is inaccurate. Some of you understand exactly how accurate this is. It's because we're not zoomed in enough, nor we are looking at the really small time frame. But what appears to happen right now is we're basically landing on the very same channel. Right, we're already showing some slowdown closing in. As you can see, we're far more subject, pardon me for that, far more subject to the current support of the channel, of the grand of both channels. In fact, we're kind of stuck in this little wedge, but presumably sooner than later, given how this momentum is set up, that 45 minutes is bearish and implying a continuation of a downtrend, sooner than later we will see a retest of that channel, while simultaneously testing our own parallel and respective levels on the regular SPX, simply because that was our continuous channels contract, pardon me, our futures contract, which slightly differs from our day-to-day SPX. So if we're looking at our 4 hour, why do we want to see the 4 hour? Simply because the 1 hour is at its maximum capacity of an ability to show us how bearish the trend is. It is simply, if the trend is even more bearish than what it is right now, that time frame simply is incapable of showing us that very thing. So we go to the 4 hours and realize we're tremendously bearish with clear divergence and continuing downwards. So basically all that entanglement and retest that we potentially will observe throughout today's session may still end up and result with a movement downwards. May, I highlight and say, keyword here is may, doesn't mean necessarily it will. The same way, the same may is about the may close this gap. It's not a certainty, but it may. What we are seeing for certain is that we are currently stuck for this range on the grand scheme of things, but when we're looking at the 4 hours, we basically realize that sooner than later, which may occur throughout today's session, given how early we are into the session today, and how bearish this is, and we have still one more candlestick to be set on the 4 hours, this still may end and result in being tremendously bearish and taking the price action even lower than what we've opened today and we are right now. On the daily, I don't have to say anything. It's tremendously bearish, just like what we saw on the 4 hours. In fact, the 4 hours oftentimes is very similar and symbolic of what we're about to see in larger time frame, in the adjacent time frame, which is the daily. And so we're seeing on the daily something very similar to what we saw on the 4 hours, more of that bearish pardon me, sentiment and momentum coming through. And since we are now below the 50, right, which means we are in sold territory, in far more bearish territory, we're not oversold, and that means there's plenty of room to go down before we will feel like we're moving too far too fast downward, so to speak, the same way we oftentimes have it on the other way around. Okay, so by now the impatient people and those who really don't understand what I'm talking about probably left. You see, guys, investors, traders alike, it's all very important that you understand the market language so you can determine whether you want to, DCA stronger, wait a little bit. If you are a DCA kind of person, if you're a trader, you want to understand the day-to-day fluctuations. You want to understand whether you want to stay in the current wave, whether you are, bullish, bearish, long-term, short-term. Of course, it's all relative, as we understand. One person can see a week as a long period, while someone else sees that as a grain of salt on an entire beach, basically a tiny fraction of the time frame, which is in fact not even important. So as we can see on the monthly, we are very bearish. We are going to continue and accelerate downwards given the divergence and the strength of the bearish momentum that we have right now. That means within it, on the daily sort of time frame, on the smaller time frames, we may still see some corrections, but they are probably going to be internal until the month is fully complete. We're talking about merely 4 days. If we objectively look at the month right now, we realize that we have left only 2 sessions. Well, today's session, and only, you can consider it 3 sessions left until the end of the month. So you may as well call this 3 days instead of 4. So we're basically just around the corner of seeing the next following candlestick, which we may see some level of correction to the upside. The market does like balance, although we are now generally far more of in a bearish channel. And the bearish channel, as we know, tends and can be a lot swifter, a lot faster moving downwards, because fear is just stronger in that sense, faster, because people have nothing to rely upon. In fact, if you think about the psychology side of things, it takes people to build conviction and get convinced, if you will, to go into the market, although it does these corrections, and follow over time and see the market is generally bullish. Right now, we are generally bearish with some level of corrective measures upside as we continue downwards. So fear tends to be stronger because people do not know technical analysis, nor do understand why the forces are so strong moving downwards. Well, hypothetically, Trump is postponing the war, or maybe delaying, or maybe even, finishing. No, none of it has anything to do with anything. Arguably, the cyclicality and the coincidence of it can be debated. The cyclicality and the coincidental sort of parallels of the real world events when it comes to wars and so on, earthquakes, you name it, does seem to be eerie and weird. But at the end of the day, a lot of people, a lot of technical analysts, a lot of experts are simply aware of what's going on, and they take action before the average Joe, who by the time he hears or she hears about it, it's too late. And so what you are experiencing in the market, sometimes prematurely before the event actually takes place, is those insiders, those people who are knowledgeable, who execute their positions and start moving towards the door, if you understand what I mean. So now we're seeing a far more accelerated movement towards the door. And so, well, I've warned about this for months. A long time ago, I've said how, although we may experience this process ending up being far more prolonged, and people did not realize, nor do realize still, how this process did not have to be also flat. It could have taken a far more downwards, far more bearish attitude, which of course would have been far more obvious and far less beneficial for the institutions and the market makers, who slowly capitalized on their profits and basically jumped board, while everyone else were convinced that yes, the market already seen it correct, and already seen it correct, and already seen it correct, so to the moon. That's exactly the opposite of how the market really works. If we begin going too far, too high over the cyclicality, in fact, it within itself, just the momentum implies that we're going to have some major correction and rebalancing. Some people think we found the bottom because they don't know about the cyclicality, nor about the advanced tools that I actually teach in my one-on-one academy. That is the true value of the one-on-one academy, where I teach you about the harmonic patterns, the cyclicality, the momentum, how it all comes together, supports, resistances, diagonal, horizontal, all of the above, and everything, and then some, right? And of course, those who want to know and consider the academy, by the way, if you do join as an academy student instead of a Patreon, you do get a lifetime membership, and the academy is now still significantly discounted. The price will be hiked in the following months. I can't tell you exactly when. Whenever it will happen, it will happen. It may as well happen tomorrow. Definitely something I want to highlight before I forget. Actually, this is tremendously important. If you do want to watch my channel and not miss out on the information I put out, you definitely want to be able to well, you definitely will not be able to. You definitely want to ring the bell. Make sure there will be, instead of these options, you'll have a notification bell that you should ring. Set it to all, otherwise you'll not be informed. Okay, follow me on X. I don't know why it's doing that, but restore this tab, cool for that. Definitely join in the community. While it itself is also discounted, that price is, that $70 is 30% discounted, because the original real price is $100, and the discount will expire by the end of the month, and so it will become higher. It will become either $90 or $99. If you want to make it even cheaper, you can pay annually by changing this little ticker, and it will give you, on top of the current price, the current discount, 20% more. Instead, you'll pay $56 a month instead of $70 a month, and you'll be up to speed on everything I post and talk with my members about. They are the most up to speed members. In fact, here I was highlighting how back in, if you can see, the beginning of 2026, right, on the 8th of January, I posted this very post, as you can see, and already had these blue channels in it. In fact, you can see where the price action was. The price back then was at 6,922. There was no even hint at a moving downwards. As you can see, the trend is pointing upwards. Everything feels very bullish, but I've highlighted and made sort of a point to make sure people remember and know about this. These two support resistance levels that will play a major role as we're gonna flip over. And as you can see, in fact, I mentioned them back in 2025 still, but the problem is at the end of 2025, in fact, you can see the dates right here. 2026 just started, basically, right? As you can see, right, the date of posting, it was the 21st of January 2026, right? And I was already having these these two support resistance levels. You can kind of see how they played out back then. I actually have many other pictures of these two lines even further back. The problem is they don't have the context. The picture is not zoomed out enough, so they look just at two random blue lines, and I may as well claim it's whatever, right? There is no evidence that these are exactly the same two lines that we're now seeing, in fact, playing out right now. As you can see, our price action where it is today, you can see the current date, or when you screw that, you can literally go to the price action right there. You can find where these two levels start. Here I can show it to you. Why am I being such a dumbass? I can simply show you guys that that is the very same trend line that was generated back then. Here it's even marked and highlighted, right? You can see these two blue lines and how they sort of end up now, right now, forming and playing the role of support, although a lot lower, simply because they're diagonal and descending. So that is it, boys and girls. That's all I wanted to bring to your attention and explain what's going on in the market. Of course, I will try this before the weekend fully is done. Post more to my community members. So shout out to you, beautiful legends. You guys definitely should join the academy before it gets fully filled in. I highly recommend, because spots in the one-on-one academy are numbered. I literally have currently only 3 spots available, and I'm already talking with potential students who are highly interested. I do not accept anyone and everyone. That's why, to get into the one-on-one academy, first you and I personally have a one-on-one call through the Discord, right? By the way, those who definitely are stuck in limbo, definitely do not waste your time, and make sure you follow the instructions and you connect your account so you can join in. And by the way, welcome to all the new members. Shout out to you, beautiful legends. You members, the new members, and the members who are still stuck outside can apply to the academy. Just press this academy application. For the actual members who are in the Discord, just, a parallel channel, the support channel, academy application, or just DM me, send me a message and we'll talk. We'll have a call, and then you'll be part of the academy. Plenty of awesome channels. If some of them talk about basic analysis skills, if some of them we talk about anything and everything, and of course I post and explain how the price action may behave one way or another, show my own personal analysis, my own take on things. And of course, beyond the one-on-one academy, to the members of the Patreon that I just showed you, of course, join us so you'll be part of the community and you'll know what is up ahead. Yeah, pretty much that's it, boys and girls. I love you all. You'll have a wonderful weekend, and I hope you're enjoying the price action. I definitely warned you all in advance significantly far in advance, telling you about how all this is going to happen. In fact, sort of, you know, but by making fun of what could be the potentials, we even spoke about how a war could be a potential thing, and that could be the causality of everything you're seeing right now. So that is all, boys and girls. I mean, nothing new here under the sun for us. We were more than prepared for this. Appreciate all you showing up, and I will see you on the next one. Definitely do not forget to like, subscribe, watch the other videos, which you'll probably have, you know, a couple of videos show up right here on the screen so you can watch them, recommended to you. And I'm probably gonna take off before I have another siren. Love you all. See you on the next one. Goodbye.